Talk about this loss of allyship in a really desperate time, that not only were white non-college educated women voting for Trump and against Harris, they were also voting against the interests of their black and brown sisters in parts of the country.
Black women show up all the time for what's right for people, for families, for communities. Black women showed up for women's suffrage when we knew we would still have to fight for our own if white women won that suffrage. We still showed up.
Here is the bottom line, and it has to be dealt with. You got an economy today doing phenomenally well for the people on top. It is not working for the working class, all right? How do we address those issues and in the richest country on the history of the world, create an economy that works for all? That is the issue.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Hope all is good wherever you are. The woke leftist media, which is going to be downsized dramatically very soon from if you've been reading the news, cuts are coming. People are waking up. But they have not coped with this. They're still playing the identity politics games that pretty much lost them an election. Focus on the economy. Focus on the safety of the people. The border, the inflation, the price of food. But what they're doing here is they're blaming what? White people and men. They spent 4 years crapping on men, telling them that they're part of an evil patriarchy, that they're misogynist, that they should be more like women, all this woman power stuff, demonizing men, and then you're surprised that a lot of men are going to vote the other way. Unbelievable. And at the end, I'm going to show you a clip of Bernie Sanders, who, economically and politically, I don't agree with, but he gets it. He knows it's about the economy and about the safety of the people. He's never been a identity politics guy. Now, Bernie Sanders, and I would guess most of you guys and myself, have a very different view of how the economy should be handled. At least he notices that the economy should be where the focus is. Let's get it.
Numbers here of white women who voted for Donald Trump. And the reality is that more women voted for, first of all, white women voted for Donald Trump in similar numbers to previous election cycles before even the most threatening and misogynist and violently sexist behavior and rhetoric came out of his mouth, though there was plenty in 2016 and 2020. But also women overall voted in greater numbers for Hillary Clinton than Kamala Harris. Do you have a theory on why that might be?
Well, first, let's just say this. Women are not a monolith.
Yeah.
Black women came out in droves for Kamala Harris, came out in droves for Hillary Clinton, although there were some places in which black voters did not come out to vote enough in the first place. Those are different issues. I think the one thing that we have known, and it has been true for a very long time in our voting history, is that there are white women who vote their ideology, and that includes their gender, and there are white women who do not. The white women who do not are voting their race as opposed to their gender.
Yeah.
And we are seeing that in this election cycle as well. That means we should not put all women in a single category.
Sure.
It's a more complex story. But at the end of the day, to see any of these images or hear any of this language, and you didn't even play all of it.
Yes, we don't have enough time.
You didn't even play the one where Trump started saying the B word and then got the entire crowd right before the election to call the sitting vice president of the United States the B word, in addition to the C word, in addition to whatever other slurs they have. But I don't think we can understand that separate and apart from whether we are voting our interests or not. And far too often, the relationship between patriarchy and gender, racism, come together, and we see these differences every time.
Well, and that explains why white women would be more marginally comfortable voting for Hillary Clinton than Kamala Harris. Talk about this loss of allyship in a really desperate time, that not only were white non-college educated women voting for Trump and against Harris, they were also voting against the interests of their black and brown sisters in parts of the country where their lives are in danger.
Black women show up all the time for what's right for people, for families, for communities. Black women showed up for women's suffrage when we knew we would still have to fight for our own if white women won that suffrage. We still showed up. It is a pattern of history, and we're going to keep showing up. But I think this is the point. We keep trying to model that we're all in this together.
Yeah.
That, if we gonna bleed out in a parking lot, you're gonna bleed out in a parking lot. If we can't take care of our children, you can't take care of your children. If we have to leave except we're more often in the category of worrying about whether our children are actually going to survive, worrying about if we're going to survive pregnancy. But no matter what our differences, at the end of the day, we are constantly working on coalition.
Yeah.
Constantly. And I think the issue here is, and Shannon said it so well, it's not whether or not women should be at the top of the ticket. It's whether or not we're ensuring that women are educated. And one of the things that's happening in the dialogue now is education is getting to have a bad word, like elitism. Well,
Yeah.
you know, there's nothing elitist about saying you shouldn't have to rely on your grandparents to take care of your children.
Yeah.
You should be able to retire and know you'll be okay. We should know that if the cost of sales taxes go up, it's going to harm all of us. And whether our kids are learning history is going to be good or bad, because it's going to be based on whether we're learning it or whether it's being barred from us. So at the end of the day, this is all about the same thing it's always been about. We have to find each other.
Yeah.
And women have to find each other. And it is women who are going to solve the problem.
Guys, before I get to Bernie Sanders here, who, again, actually gets it, I don't agree with the guy's points of view, but he knows it's about the economy. He knows it's about the border. It's always the economy. People want more money in their pocket. People will vote for somebody they hate if it's going to mean that they're going to have more money in their pocket. That is the biggest issue. If Obama's economy was so great in 2016, Hillary would have won. It wasn't. Trump won an economy and he won on the border crisis. Same thing he won on this time. Also, this time, people were done with the goofiness of the woke left. But here's Bernie Sanders. Let's get it.
You say you think the Democratic Party has, quote, abandoned the working class. How exactly do you think Democrats have abandoned the working class, Senator?
Look, the working people of this country are extremely angry. They have a right to be angry. In the richest country in the history of the world, today, the people on top are doing phenomenally well, while 60% of Americans are living paycheck to paycheck, and millions of families worry that their kids are actually going to have a lower standard of living than they do. You got the top 1% owning more wealth than the bottom 90%. We're the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all of our people. 25% of our seniors are trying to live on $15,000 a year or less. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. And the gap between the people on top and everybody else is getting wider and wider. And then, Kristen, on top of all of that, we got a corrupt campaign finance system which allows billionaires to buy elections. So if you're an average worker out there, you're saying, hey, I'm working longer and longer hours, going nowhere in a hurry, worried about my kids, and yet the people on top have never had it so good. Where is the Democratic Party? Are they prepared to stand up to these powerful corporate interests, raise the minimum wage, fight for health care for all people, make sure that all of our kids get the quality education that they need, expand Social Security? Are they prepared to do those things? That's the issue that we have to address.
Well, as you know, your statement was met with some sharp reaction as well. This is what Speaker Emerita Nancy Pelosi had to say. Take a look. I'll get your reaction on the other side.
Bernie Sanders has not won. Let me, with all due respect, and I have a great deal of respect for him, for what he stands for, but I don't respect him saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class families.
Has the Democratic Party's focus on identity politics gone too far, Senator?
Let me answer it this way. I think if the Democratic Party must continue to stand up against all forms of bigotry. And Democrats should hold their head high in saying, we led the fight for women's rights and to protect the woman's constitutional right for abortion. We led the fight for civil rights, for gay rights. That is something we should be proud of. But it's not either or, Kristen. This is the problem. You can do both. You could say that I'm for raising the minimum wage to a living wage, guarantee health care for all people, expanding Social Security. And by the way, I also support a woman's right to control her own body, etc. It's not either or. It's going forward in both directions.
You know, I've been speaking to some Democrats who are concerned because now President-elect Trump has beaten 2 women candidates, and their concern is that it will make it more difficult to nominate a woman candidate in the future. Do you share that concern, Senator?
No, I don't. I think it's not a question. Look, I'm not going to deny that there is sexism in this country, that there's racism, there's homophobia. It's there. But on the other hand, I think what the American people want to support, whether it's a woman, a man, a black or a white, or Latino, whatever, is they want to support somebody who is standing up, Kristen, and fighting for them. People are in pain. People are hurting. They can't afford to go to a doctor. They can't afford to send their kids to childcare or to college. They're worried about future generations and what kind of standard of living they will have. Here is the bottom line, and it has to be dealt with. You got an economy today doing phenomenally well for the people on top. It is not working for the working class, all right? How do we address those issues and in the richest country on the history of the world, create an economy that works for all? That is the issue. And by the way, what Trump did in his election is to say, I know that you're hurting, and the reason is they got millions of people coming across the border illegal. They're eating your dogs, they're eating your cats. He gave an explanation, happened to be a pretty crazy explanation. Yes, we got to strengthen the borders, but that is not going to raise wages for working people or provide health care to all people. The Democrats need an explanation, and that explanation is corporate greed and the power of the billionaire class. I know that's uncomfortable for people in the Democratic Party, some people, but that is the issue we have to address.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as usual, please smash that thumbs up button for your boy. Consider subscribing to the channel, help it grow. I'll catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody.